And welcome to the 10-Minute Life Coach. My name is Jay Clifton Payne. I'm a personal development coordinator, and I assist people ready for improvement, and that's the key, ready for improvement, in developing their personal and professional goals into tangible, focused, and achievable plans of action. This podcast is one tool I use to complete that mission. Now, with this podcast, I offer up a life lesson, if you will, a 10-minute lesson that you can take away as soon as you're done listening to the lesson and move on and apply it to your life. It's that simple, it's that straightforward, ready to go, ready to be worked out. And sometimes you may listen to a podcast here and find it's not so straightforward because you'll hear something that's something you're already trying to put into place and maybe hadn't quite figured out how to make it work towards your advantage yet. That's where this is a good thing. It reinforces that the thing you're trying to do, that choice you're making, that work you're doing is actual good work, tangible work, and just needs maybe a little tweaking, a little seasoning before it becomes the right thing to do. For more information about this podcast and how I can help you improve your life, check out the website, 10minutelifecoach.com. As I record this has been a very weird and troubling week for people who make noise for a living. These are people who speak and do communications in entertainment venues. What happened on this week, the date that we're recording this is June the 3rd. So what happened in the week that came out of May into this June in 2017, this week, comedian Kathy Griffin had to apologize and lost a job for doing a photo shoot in which she held up a bloody head of the President of the United States, currently Donald Trump. Obviously, he's not his real bloody head, but she took some photos. They went all over the internet, and no one got the joke. And in a weird sense of just reality we're in, at the end of the week, she had a press conference stating that she was being bullied by the Trump administration, and since that was happening, she was fighting back, essentially taking back her apology for what she said was a bad decision going too far in the process, based on the belief that she was being beat up too much for going too far in a bad decision. Later in the week, or somewhere in between the other things going on, Jason Whitlock, a very controversial commentarian on sports talk on Fox Sports 1 is his current home, did some speaking against LeBron James. LeBron James, of course, playing in the NBA Finals this week as we're recording this. But he had to rush to his Los Angeles home to deal with some issues with vandalism. And what made this a national story, other than a famous person being robbed, was the fact that someone vandalized his home, putting racial slurs all over the house and dealing with that. And, of course, LeBron James got to speak out on racism and how it affects him and everyone in this day. Jason Whitlock, a black person who frequently speaks out against the popular black talk, called out LeBron James for speaking about racism because, quote unquote, he's not poor. And poor people have to deal with racism because they can't get away from it. Meanwhile, LeBron James can have his house fixed, can get more security, can take care of it. So he does not know or does not actually have to deal with actual racism. And then, happening last night, Bill Maher, the comedian with the HBO show, another person who of these three that I don't find all that entertaining, had an interview with a congressman, and in the middle of the interview, dropped casually a racial slur, essentially basically saying he was a house Negro, but not using Negro, just in a casual way. And, of course, the internet blew up over that fact. Bill Maher, who's no stranger to saying controversial things and throwing out things he probably shouldn't be saying, said something else that he doesn't have the privilege to do and shouldn't be said in the first place. Why are these three people the topic of a life coaching lesson? Well, this is America. At least I live in America. Hopefully you have a fairly good rights and freedoms wherever you live. But I live in the United States, and the United States has something called freedom of speech. It is given to us in the Constitution. Freedom of speech gives us the right to speak out against anything we deem necessary to speak out against. You can't say anything inflammatory, and there's the whole screaming fire in the theater, the literal causing a panic in a public place for whatever reason. But if you have a feeling, if you have a right, you have a dispute, you have the right to voice that. What we have right now are privileged people who are voicing their opinions that are not exactly great opinions, and because they have the right as people with venues, they believe they have the right to speak their mind and go beyond the pale. And that's where the problem lies. Now, there are plenty of issues in this world with the oppression of people, the oppression of thought, oppression of free speech. But these three people I named here do not have it. Kathy Griffin is a self-described D-list comedian, D-list celebrity who just sort of hovers around and is kind of annoying on purpose and gets her fame by just being annoying and being there. Jason Whitlock has gotten his fame, gotten more famous when he started speaking out against the popular black culture memes and just kind of just being out there. He's not very popular within the system, and because he's willing to come out there and say anything against whatever the popular meme is, he gets a lot of time on the air. And Bill Maher has been doing the comedy thing and the HBO thing for a long time, so he's pretty much an established person in the media and has had various projects go awesome and had some not go so well that continue going on. Now, there's a lot of chatter about these three people and what they did in this lesson, and I'm running out of time for the actual lesson here. But the main point is this. Even if you don't live in a country where you have the quote-unquote freedom of speech, you do have the freedom to deliver whatever it is that's in your head. Whatever ideas you have the freedom to let them out. You also have the freedom to not let those ideas out, not share those ideas, not speak those words out to the world. Now, if you have a weird vent on your life and you think things should be something that's far from the norm and you believe that that might cause you some issue, then you probably should think twice about letting out your opinions on certain things. If your goal is to be inflammatory on purpose, provocative, somebody who is pushing the envelope to either push it for some sort of actual gain in life, the way to push along and move a conversation forward, or if you just get personal gain from it, that's fine, as long as you are able and willing to live with the consequences that come with them and are able and willing to deal with other people who cannot, that have to deal with the fallout from your consequences, because you will be responsible for the actions taken on others, even if they're actions that are unfair and uncouth. Now, if you don't think that you can get away with that, if you think you're just weird for being weird, and maybe if you have second thoughts and think this might not be such a grand idea to be promoting at the moment, you have every right to not promote that idea. In fact, you probably have every right to just think twice about being in the venue. There's nothing wrong with having a dissenting opinion. There's nothing wrong with being the one man in the crowd that doesn't believe what the crowd's going through. But it's a total different animal if you show up just to rile up the crowd and start a fight and incite a riot. So just like you have the right to free speech, you have the right to sit down and shut up. It'd be great if more people used that right, but when people have a venue and an opening and can do something that's provocative and gain some attention, personal gain is usually there. We're talking about Kathy Griffin, Jason Whitlock, and Bill Maher in a podcast about personal development and self-improvement. That makes absolutely no sense to me, and I'm the one who came up with the topic for the podcast. The 10-minute time limit gives very little time to give a real lesson in here, so I'm hoping that you can imply what I deem as common sense, and hopefully you have that same sense in common. If you have something to say, if it's worth saying, and if it might spark a bit of controversy, be prepared for the consequences of the words you say. If you just want to say something to rile up the crowd, think 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 times before you do that, because the consequences that come on the back end are not just yours to pay, but others around you will also deal with some of those consequences from your words, your actions, and your inability to keep your mouth shut in an issue where you know you shouldn't be jumping into. And thank you so much for joining us for that edition of the 10-Minute Life Coach. And I apologize for it being very out of character, but this was an issue that I had to come in and record the day after the Bill Maher thing, after all the things that happened. Bill Maher essentially was the straw that broke the camel's back in these issues for me, dealing with people who have a larger platform than I am, that I have a bit of jealousy for because they have that platform and they use it in what seems like ridiculous, stupid ways for some personal gain and just to gain attention for the most part, as opposed to actually spreading great things about furthering a conversation as it goes. So now, if I haven't scared you off yet, maybe you'll stick around for more of these conversations I have here on this podcast. It's a weekly podcast. 10 minutes is up, so that was the lesson. This is the part where I sell you on coming back next week, and it might be a hard sell this week. Of course, for more information about the podcast, the way it actually usually runs, stop by the website, 10minutelifecoach.com. At the website, we are working on rebuilding the $10 Life Coach into a new shared community where I'm asking for $10 for you a month, and we'll use that to help fund all the work it takes to work and run the community. We together will do joint coaching and help each other out through ourselves. Conversation, accountability. We'll do it with other like-minded people at the website, inside the website, and look for that to relaunch very soon as we do a couple of technical issues, making it work out, have a full-time job. So sometimes the website stuff gets put on the back burner. Also find out information about personal coaching and one-on-one coaching. We do that as well. Check that out as well. For more information on many of my other things that are not 10-Minute Life Coach related, but somewhat related, check out my main website, letter J, Cleveland like the city, PAYNE.net. We also want you to conversate with us, talk to us any time of day via email. Send me an email at jclevelandpayne@gmail.com, or you want something less spammy, more business-like, send it to info@jclevelandpayne.net. They both get checked. The Gmail account, oddly enough, gets checked more often throughout the day because I have a lot of things attached to it, but a lot of things kind of get glossed over and checked on the back end because it gets a bit spammy. The big important thing, and you stuck around this long, so I need to make sure you get this, is I need to thank you for being a part of what we have going on here for our podcast. It is an amazing thing to do, the way technology works, that anyone with access to a microphone and a computer can get their opinions out there. As I spoke about in the lesson, anybody out there with a platform can say whatever inflammatory thing they want to and hopefully get some gain for themselves, but also the little people can say a couple words and hopefully gain some traction. So if you enjoyed this, please share it with a couple people, give some ratings and reviews, subscribe to the podcast, and let me know, email me, let me know how well I'm doing, and let me know if you want to hear more or less of what we had today. Today was a very special kind of it got to me day, so that's why it got to me today. Next week, we will have something probably a lot more inspirational and more life lesson-ish than this one right here. But thank you so much for putting up with this little bit of a rant today. Next time, we're back to more normalcy, we hope, inside the 10-Minute Life Coach.